بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه مباركا عليه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى جل جلاله وعم نواله والصلاة والسلام على سيد الحبيب المصطفى صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So my dear brothers and sisters, dear friends, to be honest, since I've arrived here, I've been hearing a lot about this institute that you guys have worked very, very hard to get into. I'm not sure if I envy you or if I feel relieved that I don't have to do this all over again. PhD journey is extremely a lonely one. Do you guys agree? Is it an exciting journey? I mean, is it a lonely journey or what? Some of you are excited about it, mashallah. It's something you want to do. When you actually start doing it, you can't wait until it's complete. But in the process of the 3 or 4 years, this was my case. I had a full-time job, I had 4 children, and I was doing a PhD at the same time. I was an imam in the masjid and I was doing a PhD. And it was tough to try to balance the research. My professor, he used to send me a message. Very formal message. Abdur-Rahman, you promised to deliver the next chapter by, the next day. So then I would quickly draft a quick chapter and send it to him. After a few months, when I met him again, I said, Professor, he's a Muslim professor. It's in SOAS, the University of London. I said, Professor, you don't need to be very formal with me. You can just tell me, where's the work? You don't need to be very formal with me. I wanted to just break the ice. So it's because I have so many other things that were going on at the same time. It was very difficult to commit here and commit there. So eventually in the final year I decided I need to get this finished because it's like a burden now. So then I worked very hard and I got it done, alhamdulillah. And in the Viva, after I submitted it, the 2 professors in the Viva process, alhamdulillah, one of them said, he was an older professor from another university. He said, I'm really glad that I've been able to read something like this before I leave academia. So he was, alhamdulillah, he was impressed by it because when you go to the Viva, and if they tell you have to do a major rewrite for 18 months, I didn't want to touch my PhD again. After I finished it, I didn't want to touch it again. So alhamdulillah, he passed it with minor corrections, 3 months, alhamdulillah. So I pray that Allah make it easy for you as well. But the best part of it, which I miss, is the concerted research that you're able to do when you're in the midst of it. Because a PhD is supposed to be a full-time job. So you should essentially close out everything else and you should be focused. And that's really the only time you can really, the thought process develops. That's why PhDs are never done in 1 year, because you can't mature in your field in 1 year. It takes 2-3 years to let your ideas develop and mature and come to some kind of fruition. So I can understand why it's 4 years, or 3 years, or whatever it is. I can understand that. And I wish that I could do it now. I can only make an effort to undertake any kind of serious research when I'm writing a book. Are you okay? Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. True believers. That obviously is a very general statement. How do we understand that? How do we implement that? How can we make it work in a practical sense? The other thing that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَتَبَ الْإِحْسَانَ فِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written excellence in everything. And then the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave some examples. That when you do this, then make sure you do it properly. When you do this, then you do it properly. Ihsan, the concept of ihsan, comes from the root in Arabic. Every word in Arabic, every name in Arabic, every term in Arabic comes from a root letter. 3 root letters. So let me give you an example. What's your name? Yeah, as long as you've got an Arabic name, not a Persian name. Ashraf al-Haq. What is that supposed to mean? Ashraf means the most noble, al-haq of the truthful one. That's a good example. Ashraf is an Arabic term, al-haq is an Arabic term. So Ashraf comes from the root letters Sheen, Ra, Fa, Sharaf. Sharaf means nobility. Ashraf means the most noble. Right? What's your name? Yeah. Muntasir or Muntasir? Okay. You better say Muntasir with a sad because it makes a difference. Arabic is a very sensitive language. In the Quran we have the word qalb. Illa man ja'a biqalbin salim. Biqalbin salim. If you read it in our Indian way, biqalbin salim, you mess up the meaning big time. Do you know what the difference between qalb and kalb is? What? Heart and dog. So it says that you won't be successful in the hereafter unless you come with a sound heart. And unfortunately some of us read it except with a sound dog. You don't want to come with a dog in the hereafter. I mean, that's the last thing you want to come with. So Arabic is very sensitive. For example, if you look at the word Maliki Yawmiddin, Malik, it's written Mim, Lam, Kaf. Do you have a board here? No. This is a wedding hall. You don't have boards in wedding halls, right? Mim, Lam, Kaf. Mim, Lam, Kaf. You can read Karazabar, standing fatha, Malik, which means owner or sovereign. You can read it Malik, which basically means king again. You can read it Milk, which means ownership. You can read it Mulk, which means sovereignty. You can read it Malak, which means angel. From 3 letters, you can make so many different words. Arabic is very sensitive. So, the word ihsan. Ihsan comes from the word husn. What does husn mean? We use that in Urdu. It means beauty. Ihsan is a transitive term. It means to do something, to create husn in something. Anything in the form of if'al, ihsan, right? Ikram, it means to do something to someone else. Ihsan means to deliver husn, deliver beauty, deliver excellence, to perfect something, to make something accomplished, to enhance something. That's what the word ihsan means. Very comprehensive term. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has prescribed upon you ihsan, excellence, creating beauty, creating enhancement in everything. Whatever you do. Whether that be if you cook, if you want to be a chef, proper cuisine, you know, you need to have ihsan in that. That's why, mashallah, in England, the Queen had her 70, your Queen, not just my Queen, your Queen as well, the British Commonwealth, right? She had her 70th anniversary. And do you know who cooked? You know who baked a cake? It was a hijabi woman. She baked the cake for her very special occasion because in England we have this show called the Bake Off, the National Bake Off. All of these bakers, they get together, they compete with one another, and this Muslim woman with the hijab, and she won. So then she was told to bake the cake. That's what we call ihsan. In everything, a mu'min is supposed to do ihsan. Is supposed to deliver excellence, whatever that be, right? Not to the level of narcissism or, there's an extreme in everything. I am a perfectionist. So when we're I'm a publisher. When I'm publishing, I'm fussing over the aesthetics, the beauty. Some people think, why do you have to bother with this? Optical alignment and all of these curling between letters. That's my field, I love it. I enjoy it. Some people say, why do you bother? Just push the work out. Even if it looks sloppy. I don't believe in that. I think the message of a book can be delivered much further when you have ihsan in it, when it's beautified, when it's perfected, as far as possible. Nothing can be perfect in this world. What's amazing is that sometimes we publish a book. I've had several editors and proofreaders read over it, really good proofreaders, and we still find mistakes afterwards. That's just human. We do to the best of our ability. That's all it is. Right? We can never reach perfection, so there has to be a limit to these things. So, I commend you for all of the description of people. You've jumped through many hoops, very competitive. You've played a lot of competitive. You've been in a lot of competitive competitions and other things to be able to get to where you are. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take you now even further and to give you perfection in everything, in your work. And the only thing that is required for anybody with perfection is that they don't use their perfection. They don't use, or I would say, they don't waste their ability in the wrong thing. A friend of mine, we memorized the Quran together. Hifz, very intelligent. After we finished Hifz, I went to do Alim class. Right, I went to the Alim class. He went to study further to become a medical doctor. So he went into medicine, Liverpool University. He finished his medical degree. He practiced for a while. He even did a specialization in tropical medicine, everything. Just last year he called me. He says, "Look, I'm giving up this whole thing. I want to be an alim." Now he wants to be an alim. Find me something relevant. Find me somebody that can teach me at my level, right? Because, subhanAllah, because I don't want to do medical, I don't want to be in the medical field anymore. But mashallah, now there are many students who are doing PhDs at Imperial College. There's a madrasa I teach in. It's an evening madrasa, alim class. Course is 7 or 8 years. We have at least 2 or 3 students who are doing PhD or postgraduate in Imperial College and UCL and other places. They're doing that, and they're also coming to study the deen. And they make very good scholars, mashallah, because they've learned the thinking process. Right? Through academia, you learn thinking and research. So when they do alim class, they can, mashallah, do really well. And I'm just giving you ideas that don't let it stop here. Whatever you're doing, it's wonderful, right? And it has to be commended, but don't let it stop there. There's a lot more you can do and that you can provide to the world, because we need to be useful people for the world. So anyway, I went to madrasa. I said I was going to give you my biography, so I'll just quickly give you my biography, right, if it matters. I finished the memorization of the Quran at about 16. Then I went into alim class. For 6 years I studied. Did Arabic and Hadith and Tafsir and so on. I had some wonderful teachers, but then I wanted to study for further 3 years outside. So I went and I studied the first year I went to South Africa. I did a BA Honours degree at the university. I did the Mufti class in the local madrasa. Then the next year I went to study in Syria before all of these before the bad situation. May Allah bring it back to its good old times. It's a wonderful country, mashallah, otherwise. Very, very illuminated country that was. May Allah bring it back. And then the third year, I came to Saharanpur to do the Mufti class again because I wasn't satisfied. I'm still not satisfied, but I wasn't satisfied, so I did the Mufti class again. Then I went to America for 8 years. I became an imam there in California. And then I was going to go on to a law degree there, a JD. But then I came back to England because my mother became sick. May Allah have mercy on her. And then I started the Masters and PhD at SOAS, and I just finished that. Then I did 1 year postgraduate research at the Cambridge Muslim College. And then I made a conscious decision to come out of academia. I may go back into it, but I came out because London, just London alone, right? Not the whole of England, but London alone has at least 500 male and female alims and alimas, graduates. And what I'm trying to provide for them with all the experience that I've gained in these places is basically we've established a postgraduate institute for alims and alimas. So we teach them some additional courses just to give them more relevance. We have the theology course because nowadays there's a lot of people out there who are atheism is on the rise. Because if you look from the 16th century, atheism has always been around. There's always been somebody who denies God. They've always been a minority. Atheists will always be minorities, but they were hidden. A lot of the time it was children of clergy. In Europe, and a lot of the time they would try to spread some ideas of atheism in a coded way, because you couldn't be openly atheist because the church ran Europe. Europe was run by the church until quite recently, in a sense. But now, with the likes of Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, etc., right? It's become quite militant atheism to a certain degree. Some are very eloquent, that's why you got a lot of YouTube videos and debates. And if you don't know much about your own faith and you listen to them, you could get confused, because when you don't know the alternative side, then clearly you just become convinced by what you hear. And unfortunately, most people, they don't do thorough research of both sides before they actually accept. Now, in my job as an imam and a counselor, I have to be very careful. One side in a conflict will come and tell me all the bad things about the other side. Now, if I take their word for it, then I've already failed in my job. Because, unfortunately, each side will be biased. They will magnify and exaggerate their side of the story. And then it's only when you listen to the other side that you get a balance. So I have tried to habituate myself to suspending judgment until you hear both sides. That's very important. So that's the institute that we're running right now. Maybe in about 2 years, there's an opening at a major university, which somebody has offered me. Maybe we'll take that post. Wallahu a'lam, I'm not sure. But we ask Allah for tawfiq to give us the best, because we've got every one of us is a short life. Everybody's got there's one professor, he's a convert himself, major academic. So I asked him once, I said, do you know Urdu? So he said, no. I said, because I know he knows Turkish, he knows Persian, he knows German, he knows several other languages. I said, why don't you learn Urdu? He said, I would love to, but life is now very short. So you have to realize that regardless of how we are, wherever we are, mortality is a reality. We're going to die one day. I know we don't like to think about it, but we are going to die one day. And it's a good idea to try to pace ourselves and to place ourselves in the right place, where we get the best of this world, but definitely the best of the hereafter. We don't want to miss out on being, we don't want to be the best in this world and then we lose out on the hereafter. We want to get the best of both. That's what I call excellence. I know it's difficult. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of people that will come in your way to that. But that's the nature of this world. But in Islam, I think we've been given a way to deal with it. So, there's another hadith I mentioned to you which I find extremely inspiring and motivating. There's a hadith rated by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, and Ibn Hibban in his Sahih, from a lesser known companion whose name is Amr ibn al-Hamid radiyallahu anhu. He's not very well known, he's not a famous like Abu Hurairah and so on. Once, he says that once the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا اسْتَعْمَلَهُ. The famous one is مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Right? This one is مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا اسْتَعْمَلَهُ. Whoever Allah wills good with, khayran means good. Whoever Allah wants good for, ista'malahu, He will use him. So the companions, they were wondering what that meant. So they said, Ma ista'malahu ya Rasulullah. What does ista'malahu mean? Ya Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So he said, يوفقه لعمل صالح قبل موته يرضى عنه من حوله يرضى عنه من جيرانه. Allah will, before the person's death, Allah will give him divine enablement. Allah will give him the inspiration and the enablement to do something by which the people around him or her, right, will be satisfied with them. You will accomplish something that will help the people. You will accomplish something by which people will pray for you. Today, when I read a book that has helped a lot of people, for example, everybody knows Imam Bukhari's main book, right? Everybody's heard about it. Where was Imam Bukhari from? Bukhara is in Uzbekistan. Right? Bukhara is in Uzbekistan. Unfortunately, it no longer retains the scholarship and the environment that it had before. Bukhari is from there, Tirmidhi is from the same area. But basically, would he have ever known that somebody in London, somebody in America, somebody in Bangalore would be reading his book and saying after his name, Rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy on him? Do you think he ever thought that? Amazing. He died in 246, I believe, Hijri. We're in 1440, around that time. That's 1200 years nearly. But we still remember him today. And there's many other people like Imam Nawawi, Imam Ghazali, Imam Jilani, there's so many people. They produce something which is still. Then you have the likes of Ibn Rushd, Avicenna, and others who produced a lot of science or other breakthroughs. You've got a number of others. Unfortunately today, Muslims struggle, right? I'm still working my way through this. There's a lot of research that needs to be done for a lot of things related to Islam. But the problem is that there's no money there, there's no funding there. That's the problem. A lot of people wonder where the Muslim scientists are. There's a lot of Muslim scientists. But they're sitting in Western institutes. They're sitting in Harvard and Cambridge, in Princeton and Yale and Stanford. That's where they're sitting. You go, I've lived in America. Nearly every hospital has a Dr. Khan or Dr. Ahmed, either from, somewhere in the Indian subcontinent, whether that be from this country or your neighboring countries. Is it taboo to take the name of your neighboring countries? Or is it okay? There are so many Palestinian and Egyptian scientists in different universities. Unfortunately, their own countries don't respect them. Right? This is a serious problem we have. Alhamdulillah, in India it may still be a struggle, but you have a lot of freedom here, which is a wonderful thing, that you can actually do some studies. Of course, you have to find funding. And I think what Muslim organizations need to understand is, I don't think they've got the idea of paying for somebody's research. Are there any Muslim research funding organizations that just provide you 3-year research for something related to Islam and science, for example? Is there anything like that? No. People know that we need to spend money in disaster areas, in feeding the poor, in building masjids and madrasas. But unfortunately, this part is lacking. Cambridge Muslim College, they are funding 2 research positions this year for Islam and science related, and I know one of them is doing research on AI, artificial intelligence. We need a lot more Muslim funding for talented young men and women who will do the right research. So then, again, as I said, I'm thinking my way through this, so I don't have anything conclusive yet. But that's an area that, inshallah, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us in. But this hadith is very important. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to be an alim, a scholar of the deen as such, to be able to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can be whoever you are as long as you follow the basics of the deen. And then you have the right intention in what you're doing. Intention is very important. Unfortunately, in the competitive world we're in, it becomes about personal gratification, personal accomplishment. I'm not saying personal accomplishment is a bad thing. You have to have some level of confidence inside to be able to think, I can do something. That's nothing wrong with that. But to do something just for me, that's not so healthy. You need to believe in yourself that I can do something. But there's an ulterior
There's a lot more to it than just me, right? It's not just about my name. I can have my name, I don't mind having my name. But my intention is empathy, is compassion, is helping others, is to satisfy God, to satisfy Allah. And hopefully, then if something is accepted, for example, there's another great scholar, his name was Imam Malik, one of the great scholars of Medina Munawwar. One of the madhabs of the people of North Africa, it's their Malikis, because he developed a madhab, a school of thought as well. He wrote a famous book called Al-Muwatta. This was his collection of hadith. Somebody came to him and said, there's others who are also writing a book with a similar name. Now, are we going to go for copyright infringement? I don't think there was any copyright database in those days, or I don't think there were any copyright solicitors. I don't think the courts were like, what are you talking about copyrights here, right? They were not necessarily plagiarizing his work. It was just they did their own collection and called it the Muwatta for whatever reason. Right? I'm not saying they had bad intentions, but somebody came to Imam Malik and he said, this is what's happening. He said, it doesn't matter. He said, مَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ فَهُوَ يَبْقَى. That which is going to be for Allah, that which you do in sincerity for a higher motive, that will remain. That will remain, that will endure. And that which is not done for the sake of Allah will disappear. Will disappear. That's why, to be honest, in the academic world, do you know what the statistic is of somebody reading your academic paper? How many people in a lifetime will read your paper? Unless it's an exceptional paper. I'm sure you all write exceptional papers, but the average paper, research paper that's written, tell me how many people access it and read it. What's the, you know, like on JSTOR? Do you guys use JSTOR? What do you use here? Do you know JSTOR? Article database, right? What is the statistic? Anybody know? It's about 7 reads in the lifetime of that article. You work so hard, you get it peer reviewed, and then 7 people read it. Not saying that should demote you, but it's just a sad fact. Now, that's what I don't want to do, so I've gone mainstream. My books are written with a level of academic, rigor, but I'm intending it for the mass. Because I just feel that's what I want to do. I'm not saying you must do that, I'm saying that's what I want to do. I feel more accomplished that way. Right? Again, these are just ideas. So hopefully, I think I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I want to open it up for discussion. That's why I just want to say that I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us famous dua. Oh Allah, make us the keys for goodness. Allah's given you something, an ability, a capability. If you can use that to open up certain doors of goodness that the world can benefit from, as opposed to use the ability Allah has given us to open a door of wrong or evil. Generally, most people are followers, right? They're not willing to go against the grain, right? Some of us like to go against the grain, do something different. But there's a risk in that which you have to be careful of. Those of us with a radical bent, inclination, who wants to do something different, sometimes we're pushed to do the wrong thing. And that's where you waste your talent. It's about getting it right. And for that, what I always do is I always consult people, others. What do you think of this idea? What do you think of this? How will it be received? Is there benefit in that as I perceive it? Or is that just a misjudgment? Always helps a lot. So we ask Allah for the best for all of us. And I will open it up, inshallah, for any discussion that you have. I think the idea is that you should be able to feel free to discuss whatever, anything that's weighing on your heart, anything that has caused you any kind of discomfort. And I don't have the answers to everything, I'll tell you that from now. And if I don't have the answer to something, I will tell you so, right? I don't see that as a sign of weakness. In fact, I think the weakness is to feel like you know everything, because I'm sure everybody here knows you can't know everything. Somebody came to Imam Abu Yusuf, one of the great Imams of the past, and he was sitting on the third step of the pulpit of the minbar in the masjid, and somebody asked him a question. So he said, I don't know, I don't know the answer. So the person was a bit frustrated. He said, you're sitting up there and you don't know the answer? He said, yes, I'm only sitting according to my level of knowledge. If I sat according to the level of my ignorance, I'd be up there instead. Right? Ignorance is a reality. And we should just, I will use this, I will write the question down, I will use it to go and research it afterwards. So please feel free to engage, inshallah. So everybody heard the question, what should be my intention, whether in my work or whether in my studies. So, as I gave you the example before of my son looking for the right course, and we felt that physics was the right thing for him as an alim, and also because physics allows you to go into computer science, it allows you to go into so many other fields that are related. It's not a dead-end subject as such. And while you're studying, you learn a lot as well. So the intention, I believe that the richness of Islam is found in the ability to have multiple intentions. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions are according to intentions. Who said you can't have multiple intentions? You can have multiple intentions for a single act, single activity. The only time having a multiple intention is a problem is if one intention cancels out the other. They're contradictory intentions. Right? So the intention for working and the intention for studying needs to be, in my opinion, and again, you could come up with other ideas, it doesn't have to be limited to this, is that number one, I want to earn a halal living, if it's a work. There's nothing wrong with that, that's a sunnah, especially for men to provide, that's a special sunnah, right? That's important, right? I want to contribute to society, not just to Muslims, but to humanity as a whole, right? That's in itself it depends on what you're doing, right? It depends on what you're producing, what you're researching. So of course your research area needs to be very carefully thought out. So the intention could be multifold in the sense of I want to earn a living for myself, I want to help my cause, I want to benefit others, I want to... Now, it could get a bit complicated. I want to make a name for myself, not because I want to be famous for the sake of being famous, and put myself on Facebook all the time and everything. No, that's not the idea, because unfortunately that's what Facebook allows you to do today, and Instagram, right? People with absolutely nothing, no capability, can just basically dress up in a certain way and sometimes become famous. So I want to be known so that I can help a higher cause, because some causes you have to be known and influential to be able to make a difference. It's a very complicated one, because sometimes fame gets to us. When you start receiving the awards and the accolades, fame gets to you. That's why the heart needs to be constantly nurtured to keep us down, because any kind of knowledge will push you up. But you need a heart full of dhikr of Allah to keep it in balance. Otherwise, we get too full of ourselves. It's very easy to do that. Very easy to do that. So multiple intentions. Ultimately, as a Muslim, our intention should also be though, that I want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I want to please Allah with the work I'm doing. And once you get that intention, then you'll be able to overcome a lot of the difficulties within your work. You'll feel a sense of contentment because inshallah you're doing it for the right reason. and Allah will place upon you blessing in your work. And just contentment is amazing. That's why sometimes even if you get a bit shortchanged, or you have suffer a bit of a setback somewhere, the beauty of a believer is that he is successful from his intention, even if the work doesn't come to be afterwards to fruition. Because we get a lot on our intention. It doesn't mean you can make empty intentions, where you've got no capability to not make an intention, right? You have something behind you. You think you can do it, and then even if you fail afterwards, Allah will reward you for it. So we ask Allah for success. Okay, let's take these questions. I am a reverted Muslim. What are my responsibilities for my non-Muslim parents and siblings? One of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, who was it? Habiba, who was it? Not Habiba, it was another one. She had a non-Muslim mother. So when she came, she asked the Prophet ﷺ, what's my response? He says, no, you need to honor her. You need to honor, because at the end of the day we're connected by blood, kinship, and this is a very important relationship, even across religions. The fact that you are the brother or sister of someone, the daughter or the son of someone, the mother or father of someone, that's not something you chose. That's something that God gave us, and there's a reason for that. So we have to respect that. The only barrier is where it contradicts with the faith. Like if they tell you, as Allah says in the Quran, right, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, you must have obedience to your parents. The only لَا طَاعَةَ لِمَخْلُوقٍ فِي مَعْصِيَةِ الْخَالِقِ. There is no obedience to any of creation when the disobedience of the Creator is involved. Aside from that, there's nothing else. But that doesn't mean that you be rude to them, even if they tell you to do something wrong. You just have to be nice and polite. But firm in your way, but polite. Respectful. That's what's important. I know it's very difficult sometimes to be in, especially if your general extended family are not Muslim and they're not accepting, it's very difficult sometimes. But you have to remember your reward is even increased, and it's now your challenge to show them the best part of Islam. And I've seen it in many cases that after years and years, it may take years, that they finally understand the beauty of Islam. But you are the representative. So your responsibilities are just like any other responsibilities, as any family would have, except that you can't get involved in anything religious that contradicts your religion. That is important. Another thing I want to clarify, it is not your responsibility to make them Muslim. Which basically means that every day that's all you talk about. Because eventually they're going to put a wall, they're going to say, we don't want to speak to you anymore because that's what you speak about. But to do it through our behavior. The da'wah, the invitation for them, needs to be from our own behavior. You need to prove to people that Islam can provide a solution, not just say it provides a solution. There's a lot of empty calls out there, but it's about proving it, showing it, demonstrating it. The Prophet ﷺ is wonderful, the Quran is wonderful. You can't tell people, look, wonderful Quran, wonderful Prophet, wonderful Seerah, but we do something else. That's the difficulty. It's difficult, but may Allah make it easy. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Just want to have your opinion about face covering and also the ruling about music. Oh, come on. These are like so common questions. I would have thought you would have asked me some complicated questions. This is what I say about face covering, right? The Prophet ﷺ's wives covered their face. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, most women in Medina Munawwara covered their faces except the slave girls. Once Umar radiallahu anhu saw a slave girl with her face covered, he pulled it off. He says, there needs to be a distinction between the free women and the slave women. Alright, now please don't ask me a question about slavery now. Okay? This is what I say. When somebody asks me, how long does your beard need to be? Is it wajib to have a long beard? Is it wajib to cover your face? My answer to them is this. It is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why I have it. A friend of mine is a convert. American convert, he went to study in Turkey, he came back to America. He used to wear a turban in Arizona where there was nobody else wearing a turban. And somebody came to ask him the question, why do you wear this? It was actually another Muslim. Why do you wear this? So he said to him, I can't answer your question. Why? Because it's so personal. The reason I wear it is because, not because it's necessary, right, the turban, the imam, is because my Prophet, who I rate as the best living person ever, he used to wear one. And I just want to be like him, so it's a very personal thing to me. Right? So, when it comes to face covering and beards and so on, this is what I say, if you cannot do it today, that's fine. But just don't justify it. There's a lot of things I can't do today, which I'd love to do. My intention is, inshallah, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe next week, next month, next year, 10 years time. And I'm going to do it one day before I die. Oh Allah, give me himmah. Give me the ability to do so. I want to be as perfect as possible and accomplished as possible before I die. There's a lot of things we can't do. That doesn't mean that we justify that they mustn't be done or whatever. And you must just develop the iman, develop the confidence, inshallah, to do it. And you will if you ask Allah with sincerity. So that's the way generally I answer this question. Because if I tell you it is necessary and you think that's too harsh, you're going to say, forget this guy, it's too harsh, I'm not going to accept it. And if I say it's not, and there's people who believe it is, then they're going to say, well, this guy doesn't know what it is, he's too liberal, forget it. So what's the point? The point is practice, isn't it? The point is practice, it's in the Quran. يا أيها النبي قل لأزواجك وبناتك ونساء المؤمنين يدنين عليهن من جلابيبهن. Right? That's the basis of it. There's a lot of difference of opinion about how exactly that's to be done. But anyway, all I would say is, you can't do it today, make an intention to do it tomorrow. That's the main thing. Right? Make an intention that we want to be perfect in every way of our faith. And we ask Allah for help. Assalamu alaikum. Seeking knowledge of the deen particularly is the prime duty of every Muslim. But from where can we get the authentic data, especially the working women working in a remote area? MashaAllah. Today, alhamdulillah, Allah has provided us as communities have become more scattered. And as people have gone to live in remote areas, as long as you've got internet there, then mashallah, you can study whatever you want. Right? ZamZamAcademy, which we have free lectures on. We have people listening to it from Australia to, just in the last 5-6 days, the questions that I've received. Only 3 from UK. All the other questions from Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, from Sweden, from even from India, Coimbatore, wherever that is. Where is that? Tamil Nadu. So, one from Bangalore. The internet is amazing. This is the beauty of the internet, to go and study, right? And especially for women in the comfort of their own home. And the benefit is that if it's on YouTube or on the website, the sheikh is at your disposal. You can speed him up to double the speed if he's taking too long, or 1.5 times the speed. You can say, no, please say it again, and rewind and redo it. There's so much flexibility nowadays, so I don't think anybody's going to accept, unless they're living like in a desert with no access. Then why are you living there? Sorry? Now, the authentic data, there's a lot of confusion. The problem with the internet is there's a lot of confusion. There are people out there on the internet saying this is halal and that's haram and that's halal and all sorts of crazy things, right? That's really confusing. I think what we need to do is you need to first pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, show me the truth as the truth and allow me to follow it. And show me the wrong as the wrong and allow me to abstain from it. Oh Allah, guide me, I want to learn the true deen. Then find some ulama who you trust in their knowledge, in their behavior, and other ulama respect them. If you go to somebody who's claiming to be a medical doctor but nobody else respects that doctor and thinks that they are charlatan, right? Would you go to that doctor? People in the industry, they know who's respectful, who's respectable. That's why فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. I use that a lot. I will find out what the people, what the ulama think about a certain thing. And if that's the case, then you go ahead. These are certain guidelines you can use, and ultimately Allah will provide you if you've got it. But hopefully that's helpful. Okay, I'm going to have to hurry up now because a lot of questions and less time. How to deal with non-mahram in our labs, class, mess. Everywhere we go, they may be there. How one should behave in such environment? That's a very good question. If you're already at university, then one of the biggest challenges, especially I'm assuming, I'm not sure if this is from a man or a woman, but it's the same. You have to be very careful. Especially if you're not married and you're at the age of marriage, then we have hormones, right? We have hormones and they're aging, right? And there's an attraction, so it gets very difficult. Now for some women, some men will come and praise them, oh you look so beautiful. Khalas, finish, right? Be careful with these things, right? Be careful. Some men, they sit with women and they say, oh we were just giving them dawah, right? These are all excuses. You have to be very, they say that there's a few keys they say. You have to be professional in your because sometimes you're working together. It's a very, what happens is that, when you're working together on a project, there will be certain successes. And when humans do something together, whoever they are, there's a bonding that takes place. Right? Naturally, there's a bonding. Then there's high fives that they give each other. Right? In fact, one person, he would try to be religious, but try to be cool in the wrong way. So he would say, well, let's do a high five like this. Let's do it like this. It's just stupidity, I think. I think it's just stupidity, right? You don't need to do all of that. You need to express yourself in a way that shows you're honorable and dignified, and that you're not going to mess around like this. Because when you get into this, it distracts your studies and everything, and it's hard. And you could end up doing harm. And that's zina, and that's problematic. So be professional, don't get too personal, and your communication needs to be in a very professional environment. And I think that should help, and always keep making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you. But be very careful with this. It's a fitna everywhere. It's a difficult one. But may Allah make it easy. How to make the atheists interested about existence of Allah. They basically argue on if Allah created us, then who created Allah, how Allah came into existence. I don't think there's when it comes to atheists and believing in Allah, I don't think there's a straightforward answer to any of this. Last year we ran a course called the Theology course, Faith Foundations course. So we went through all of the proofs for the existence of God. The teleological proof and the cosmological proof and all the others. And we were wondering that we should probably undertake a study of maybe 100 atheists, put each one of these proofs in front of them and see which is the most effective. Right? We thought, let's design a study. But as we carried on going through, we realized that you can't, you won't be able to, because in America, there's some atheists, right, as there are in lots of places. This particular atheist is Muhammad something. And I thought that was a weird oxymoron. Muhammad the atheist. How do you get Muhammad who's an atheist, right? It's just a weird oxymoron. But they were going around different universities trying to explain to people what the challenges of being an atheist. So one person asked him a question. He said, how's your family with you? He said, we've been disowned from our family. Then they said, wouldn't it have just been easier to believe? And he said, that's the problem, we can't believe. And that's what shocked me, that's what woke me up. we can't believe. The reason for this, Imam Ghazali went through a kind of a crisis like this, where he said that people born in Christian houses grow up to be strong Christians, strong Jews, Muslims. That doesn't prove the truth of your religion. So let me start from a neutral position. Let me only take the absolutes, the axiomatic beliefs, things that everybody agrees with. So he said, I started looking into what can be considered to be axiomatic, just like 2 is greater than 1. That's supposedly an axiomatic belief, right? He said, but when I opened the door of skepticism, even the very fundamental, agreed upon ideas became open to skepticism. He explains it very beautifully. He says that, when you're seeing a dream, when you're in a dream, don't you feel like you're in a reality? If you're seeing a nightmare, and you feel like you're in an accident or something happened or you failed an exam or whatever, tomorrow's over, you have an exam, may Allah give you success in your exam, right? But in your, you feel like this. And then suddenly you're sweating and everything, you wake up and you feel, Alhamdulillah, that was just a dream. But when you were in the dream, didn't you think it was a reality? Did you feel that it was not a reality? It's a reality. Right now, is this a reality? Is this really taking place? Or is this another sleep? And we will wake up from this and this will also be a dream. Can you prove it that it's not? Can science prove it? Can any subject, can any discipline prove this? We just hope it's not a dream, right? We just hope it's not a dream. It's been long enough, it's a very long dream, so it should be okay, right? But sometimes dreams are very long as well, and then you wake up from them. That's when he realized that, for example, somebody says to you that you tell somebody, I'm, my mother's son. Prove it. Here, birth certificate. Birth certificate is not proof. You can probably forge them in India, right? Can't you forge birth certificates? You probably can, right? It's forged. DNA testing. DNA testing is not 100%. A friend of mine, his wife is the head of a really prestigious fertility clinic. They had a couple who came in, all the tests, everything, test tube, IVF, everything, produced a child. Now the husband is rejecting the child. They had to go and test all of the couples who came in between to see if there was any cross-contamination. No problems in that, no problem in procedure. Then they had to consult with one of the top geneticists, I think he is, in America, I don't know who he is. And it was an exceptional circumstance, right? So even DNA doesn't give you 100%, it's about 99% or whatever, it's not 100%. If somebody wants to be skeptical, there's no end to skepticism. There's no end to skepticism. That means you have to agree at a certain level. Which level do you agree at? And I think, at the end of the day, I believe that anybody who truly wants the truth, Allah will help them if they ask Him. Otherwise, somebody could end up at a very low level of, what is absolute for them. That's why before you have atheists, agnostics, apathists, is relatively less known. Apathist is somebody who just doesn't care. Doesn't even want to care, doesn't even want to search. Atheists deny. La ilaha, they say. They just don't say illallah. Right? They say there is no God. And then halfway, we just need them to say illallah. Right? Agnostics say we can't know. We still have to keep looking. I think somebody came up with that idea and said we need to keep looking, so somebody's taken that and essentially followed that idea that we need to keep looking. Otherwise it's an absurd idea. Humans have been looking for so long, somebody must have got it, and if nobody's ever going to get it, then nobody will get it. That's just my primitive way of looking at it. That's why there's another group now. There's a guy I read, his name is David Eagleman. He writes on the brain. There's a wonderful book called The Brain, The Story of You. Really wonderful book. He's researching the brain. He says there should be a concept of possibilists, which means that you're inclined to think there has to be a God, because most studies will show that. Otherwise, we'll have to come up with some wacky ideas to otherwise justify. Right? And remember, God is metaphysics. It's not physics. So that's why physics can't answer about God anyway, because it's metaphysics. It's beyond physics. Right? Scientists. Science is fine. Islam has never had a problem with science. Science is neutral. It's supposed to be neutral. Because science doesn't deal with aesthetics. Science doesn't deal with God and belief. It doesn't deal with beauty. Those are things for other subjects. Problem is that because science is a very powerful tool, scientists have subjectivity. And they bring in their subjectivity into their work and cloak it as science. This is where I believe the problem is. That's why Yale, I think it was Yale that did 2 studies, I think in the last 2 decades or sometime, to try to understand what is the statistic level of atheists and believers within the scientific community. And by the second research, they discovered that it represented the same proportion in normal life, in normal people. Science that is not supposed to make you atheist. Right? That's why, for example, for evolution, and I would suggest you go to ZamZamAcademy.com. We've got 2 or 3 lectures on evolution that are really good. Really taught me a lot. They're done by Mufti Abdur-Rahman, who was a medical student at Cambridge University, and then he became an alim afterwards. Right? And this Dr. Usman, he's doing Maulana Usman, and he was doing his PhD in biology from London somewhere. Right? They've done it really well. It's the same thing. Nobody's willing to question because it seems like it's an absolute. Many ideas in evolution are shown to be absolute and unquestionable. There's a book I read called It's Not Rocket Science. Right? Really wonderful exposition for a layman like me to understand science. When it came to evolution, it was not convincing at all. He literally said, this has to be accepted. Right? You can't question this even though there's no proof. Right? So, it's just, when you become a believer of certain scientists and you feel you have to toe the line, then you lose your objectivity. That's a problem. Otherwise, Islam has never had a problem with science. Christian church has, Islam has never had a problem with science. We do have a problem with certain scientists who are using science in a different way. But that's a challenge for people inside the community because sometimes some of those ideas dominate. And to work your way through that as a young person who's just trying to make it, very difficult. But there's a job for you. Right? That's something you need to work with. So, where did we start from? So this idea about who created Allah, I think it's very simple to understand that, is that eventually the causal chain has to stop somewhere. I don't think anybody agrees with an infinite regress in a causal chain. That A created B, B created C, and then he created him. That's just absurd. So eventually you'll get from us to our parents up to Adam alayhi salam, right? Take it, who created Adam alayhi salam? Allah is. Well, who created Allah is a logical question. Now, how do you answer? Okay, then let's just say that Allah is God 1. God 2 created Allah. Okay, who created God 2? God 3. Who created God 3, God 4, 5? Infinite regress. That doesn't answer anything. The other option is to say God 1 was created by God 2 and God 2 was created by God 1. Well, that's secular reasoning now. So what other thing? I mean, that's why Hellenistic philosophers of the past, like Aristotle, etc., they call God I think they call him the unmoved mover. Right? The unmoved mover. He's moving everything. It's just another way. You can say the first non-contingent, or the only non-contingent beginning. These are all various expressions of where their minds have eventually, allowed them to reach without any absurdity. So I believe anybody who has this issue, you can try, right? You can try to explain to them who God is, but I would depend. A lot of people ask me that I've got a friend, which book should I give him on Islam? Now you can't just recommend one book. It depends. Is he scientific? Then maybe a scientific book on Islam is helpful. Is he philosophical? Give him a philosophical. Is he spiritual? Doesn't care about science at all, just philosophical, right? There's many ways of explaining. But at the end of the day, it's not our obligation to convince the world. Many people, they come to me, I've got a work colleague, there's a man, and saying the work colleague is a woman, I've been telling her about Islam for 2 years, but she won't accept. What should I do now? So I leave her alone. Why are you going to convince her? Isn't there hundreds of other people you can convince? Right? That's just a joke, by the way. But that did happen. But I believe that it's through beauty. A lot of people have disregarded God because why is France so anti-religion? Not just anti-Islam. Why is it anti-religion? It's only anti-Islam more than others because other religions have pretty much become passive. It's only Islam that's still active. So that's why it's more against Islam. They hate all religion because they were persecuted by the church. In the whole of Europe, they were persecuted most. There's a book you should read if you're interested in this subject called Atheists, the Origin of the Species. It's a pun on Darwin's book. Atheists, the Origin of the Species. Beautiful exposition by, I forget his name, but when he has the chapter on France, he says French fury, because they are furious against religion because they've been persecuted. And it's in England, there's a woman, she called me once, from Pakistan, originally Pakistani. She's married to a non-Muslim. And now she was concerned about something. So I said, how did you end up marrying a non-Muslim? She said, my parents forced me to marry my cousin or somebody from my relatives in Pakistan. We had no compatibility. So I finally escaped the marriage, and essentially what happens is a lot of people, they use religion to justify culture. They don't care about religion anywhere else, but when it comes to you must marry her, then this is, Islam tells you that because I'm your parent. Right? And it gives the people a wrong idea. So that's why a lot of the time people who've lost their faith is because of disenfranchisement. It's because of feeling isolated, having a bad experience. I believe you should show them love. You should, pastorally, you need to deal with people, not have an argument with them. You need to show where the weakness is. You know, it has to be a long-term relate to find out and then try to help them, if you're serious about it. Night and day are continuous process. Night changes into day gradually and vice versa. Therefore, a question arises: if Allah descends to the lower heaven and goes back, then He will miss some of His servants. How to understand? It's a very good question. Okay, there's a hadith which says that at the last portion of the night, God descends to the first heaven and says, "Is there anyone to ask? I will give them." So the aqidah of the vast majority, if not the overwhelming Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is that God cannot be characterized by any movement, transposition, or any other kind of human action. So what he's saying, this is figurative, this is metaphorical, symbolic. He's saying that God is closest to you at the last portion of the night. Doesn't mean He physically descends. That's, in fact, anybody who believes that would be committing anthropomorphism, which basically means to give God human behavioral traits, which is a blasphemy in the religion. Majority of ulama, there are few who seem to indicate a physical movement, but they're being condemned and criticized, right? As mushabbiha, corporal realists, or anthropomorphists. Our belief is that Allah does not move. He is where He's always been, and we don't talk about location because He's beyond time and space, right? This just is that this time is a very potent time. This is the time for tahajjud. And do you know why this time is potent? Why it's such an acceptable time? Simple. Some of the ulama have explained it, that it's the time when the mischief makers of the night are finally going to sleep. Because it's not 1 or 2 o'clock and they're still clubbing, right? The evil people of the night, or people involved in haram of the night, are finally going to sleep. the evildoers of the day are not yet awake, that means it's the most purest time. Right? That is the explanation that some muhaddithin give for this, why this time. But it is not to be taken literally, that Allah descends. He doesn't need to descend. So that means that question doesn't even arise. Right? There is one more hadith regarding Surah Yasin. I thought it is interpreted, Allah says, at the time of sunset, it goes, yes. This hadith is quite a confusing one. The hadith says that when the sun sets, anyway, Maghrib time, it goes and prostrates to Allah and seeks permission to rise again. Now we know that the sun never sets everywhere around the world. It sets one place, it's rising in another. That's essentially what it is. So how do you understand this? May God bless the ulama. They never try to dismiss these narrations. They didn't say, oh, we don't understand it, let's call it a weak hadith. Because it's in Sahih narrations. So there's a scholar of 150 years ago from Baghdad, whose name was Imam Alusi. He wrote Ruh al-Ma'ani. He's got a wonderful, he says, I have asked many scholars to give me a satisfying response to this. But they couldn't. But I researched, and this is now my theory. This is now my possible explanations. Just to give you an understanding, there's a genre in hadith studies which is called the Mushkil ahadith. These are those hadiths which are complicated to understand. They don't seem to fit the reality from our context. What scholars are trying to do is to try to explain them. And if they can't, then they say we can't explain it, but maybe it's this possibility. And alhamdulillah, in a lot of them, I found a lot of satisfaction. Okay? So in this one, he says, I've searched far and wide, and this is my final thesis. He says, and to us today, it's very easy to understand. For him, it will be more difficult. I'll tell you why. He says that we have many examples in Sharia of the metaphysical world, or the post this world barzakh. You know, when people die, they're seen in dreams. Right? We can't legislate on that world because we've no experience. It's not something that you can do through empiricism. Right? It's something beyond this world. For example, the Prophet ﷺ met Musa ﷺ by his grave in the Sinai. He carried on and he met him in Masjid al-Aqsa when he led on in his ascension. This is obviously, we are assuming that this hadith is correct. As Muslims we believe that. It's Mi'raj. Then he went up to the heavens and he met him on which heaven? The sixth one, right? Just before Ibrahim met Musa there. How is Musa in one of these places and he's buried in his grave? Okay, the Prophet ﷺ physically is moving around. But Musa, what is he doing? When he's supposed to be buried in his grave, what is he doing in Masjid al-Aqsa at that time? And then what's he doing up on the sixth heaven? This is the metaphysical world. This is barzakh. We can't legislate on this. There's a possibility. It's from the realm of possibilities. We know that. It's proven. Right? A lot of scientific breakthroughs tell us about the realm of possibilities. Once you can prove something to be a possibility, then the details are secondary. Right? So, the soul and the body, now let's introduce the soul. The soul and the body is what humans are made of. In the next life, the soul and the body, the soul could be in one place, it could take on another manifestation. The body could be in another place. You don't even have to have a body. Somebody is eaten by lions, somebody is cremated, totally incinerated, but the soul is still there. You still feel punishment or pleasure, according to the beliefs of the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Essentially what he's saying is that the sun is just a ball. It's a star, it's moving around. It never goes anywhere. But its soul that's representing it goes to Allah. And I think it's really cool because today we're talking about smart watches. We're talking about remote controlling things. Just opening your car by remote control would be unheard of 200 years ago. They're like, are you serious? Speaking to somebody on the phone. That's the realm of possibilities Allah has opened up to us. So, it doesn't mean the actual ball globe of the sun goes. It's the sun, the spirit of the sun, whatever that is, because what he explains is that there are many inanimate objects that have been set to speak. They have a consciousness, though different from us. For example, in another verse in the Quran, Allah says, فَسَوَّاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ فَسَوَّاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ. Then what did he say afterwards? Allah addressed the heavens and the earth, and He said to them, إِئْتِيَا طَوْعًا أَوْ كَرْهًا. Come together, whether you like it or not. And they responded. Allah says that they responded. They say, أَتَيْنَا طَاعِئِينَ. We have come together in obedience. Allah is giving consciousness. Now, 100 years ago, saying an object has consciousness would have been impossible, rationally impossible to even conceive. But today, with AI and with smart objects, your refrigerator at home, your watch, smart objects that speak to you. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ said, a time will come when a person's straps of his sandals will speak to him. What does that mean? Today you have Nike, they have a certain footwear that communicates with the iWatch or the iWatch, what's it called? Is it iWatch? Don't want to get it wrong. Smart objects Allah has shown us in our life. That could be the reality He's talking about. Maybe there's something even more to come. Because AI is opening up some crazy dark realms. Right? That, subhanAllah, I don't even get into that. It's scary. Some of the potentials some of the negative potentials. Right? So, for me, that's a satisfying understanding of that hadith. Who said that the ball rose? Right? It's nafs, it's ruh, it's spirit which goes from Allah. So we must be very careful that we don't dismiss things just because we don't get it. Right? In fact, there's another hadith which says that, when adhan is given, then the shaitan, that's the one thing that chases shaitan away. And it says, وَلَهُ durat. He passes winds. Now, there's some skeptics who looked at this hadith and they say, what a crazy hadith, why would you say something like this? It sounds absurd. Subhanallah. Has anybody dealt with horses? No? Those are too natural for us and we just deal with iPhones. Right? Somebody who has worked with horses will say that when you get a horse to gallop, it generally lets off winds. Now the hadith makes it quite clear that the Sahaba would have known this because they're in tune with horses and camels and things like that. Right? So how can we dismiss something just because it sounds absurd to us? Anthropology tells you not to become armchair critics. You have to immerse yourself in the other culture to understand where they're coming from. It's very easy. The Western world likes to criticize everything without realizing what it is. So anyway, that just gives you an example. In Islam, girls are allowed doing job? If yes, women can work. It's just where do you work is the question. You have to find a safe environment. My wife works. She teaches. She teaches women. So she doesn't have a problem. If you don't have women working in certain areas, then we won't be able to run certain things. It's just about finding the best option. That's the difficulty. You know what it is? I'm writing a book on marriage right now. And one of the things I've written about is that a lot of marriages are breaking. Some of the most divorces are documented, are recorded in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd of January. Or 2nd, 3rd, 4th January. Why? Because I don't know about here, but in where I live, Christmas time is parties. And a huge degree of informality takes place. Lots of beer flows. And lots of marriages break up. This is a proper statistic. Highest rates of divorces are in the beginning of January. And these are for those who are married, which is a small fraction of the entire community anyway. You see, at work, this is the problem. You will wake up, dress up, make yourself up, right, to appear a particular way, and go to work. The man and the woman. unrelated. The man has a wife at home, or maybe she's working somewhere else, right? And the wife has a husband at home. You're going to be at work for about 8 hours. Most productive and fresh time of your day. You've just woken up. You've prepared and dressed for this. Most productive time. You're going to work very closely with people. You're going to share failures. You're going to share emotions. You're going to share successes. You're going to develop, probably, if you've been newly married, you probably get to know a woman at work or a man at work probably better within the projects that you do than maybe your own husband or wife. Then you come home and you're tired. And he's tired. Where do you think things are going with this? From a practical level. That's why I'm not saying don't work, I'm saying find the best possible halal work to do. So Islam doesn't say women are not allowed to work. There are many women nowadays with the internet, there's women who are making it big on the internet, from the privacy of their own homes. There's so many things you can do. So I can't give you the exact criteria, but I can tell you need to avoid haram. And if you have an idea, go to the ulama and ask them, like, this is what it is, this seems questionable, what should I do? Right, that's what you should do. Otherwise, our alima classes wouldn't run if women were not allowed to work. Right? Opinion about the youth getting exploited by internet and mobile phone addiction. Your opinion about it. I think they're wasting their time by not categorizing phone addiction as a proper medical problem. They're on the verge of it, but they're not willing to do it. It's a massive problem. Right? Maybe in one of the subsequent bayans we'll be talking about the addiction of this. It's psychological, it is problematic. Not just for children. The only reason it's bad for adults, bad for ulama, it's bad for wives, it's bad for everybody. Right? But it's worse for children because they're still formational years. And that addiction in those formational years is even worse. My children are only allowed to play on the computer, internet, whatever, for 2 hours on Saturday, 2 hours on Sunday. But to get them off after 2 hours is like withdrawal symptoms from drugs. It's crazy. And I tell them that my son was 9 and the other one was 6. I said, look, you've got withdrawal symptoms. He's only a young boy. I said, you look, it proves you've got withdrawal. That's why next week you can't have it. We need to put you in rehabilitation. Right? So it's dangerous. And there's so much study out there on this that you can read. I don't want to tell you about it. There's so much study. You need to be careful. You have to regulate this. Okay, you said about the situation in Syria. What can we academic scholars do to prevent destruction? Ooh, these open-ended questions are difficult because they're very specific. I think what you can do in your position is to try to think how you can better the world in what you're doing. Right? Find something, which my whole lecture before was about that. Find something that is not dead-end, that's not just for personal gratification, but something that has empathy for others that you can do, whether that be in Syria or the Rohingya or whatever the case is. Alleviate poverty, alleviate difficulty, invent something that will help people. Like mashallah, they're inventing various different things for people without water, Bill Gates Foundation and so on. Find something like that. Moreover, could the Muslim world, especially sane ones, do to stop Sunni-Shia conflict in which would solve a lot of problems and unite the whole Muslim Ummah? What can we do? P.S. Wonderful speech. Okay, thanks for that. I don't know the answer. It's not my level, and I don't think it's my responsibility. The leaders haven't asked me, right? We, at our little level, have to do the best that we can. But this is at a high level. We must not create conflict within us. It has to start from us. We've got a certain responsibility. Let us see how we can coexist in a proper manner. And alhamdulillah, I generally tell people, right? In England, they look at Pakistan, they look at Saudi Arabia. I said, you can't look at Pakistan and Saudi Arabia for an example of how Muslims should live. That's a Muslim country. Those are Muslim countries. Utopian ideas. Look at India. India has survived as Muslims, even when Muslims ruled India, they were always a minority. Did you know that? Muslims have never been a majority in the country, right? 15%, I think. We've always been a minority. But, mashallah, the ulama, they figured out ways to... That's why we don't need a minority fiqh, we already have one. Fatawa Hindiyya. Yes, the last 30 years or 40 years has changed the world. Unprecedented changes that you would never have seen. The world was the same for about 5, 6, 7, 8 of century before about 50 years ago, or maybe 100 years ago. But in the last 100 years, the way the world has changed is unprecedented, and it's never going to go back, at least from what we can see. It's just that some of us have not caught up yet, and have not provided the solutions that we need. I confess to that, right? Some of us ulama have not been able to provide that solution yet. I completely confess to that. It's a hard job, right? But alhamdulillah, now I can see now that there are a number of ulama, especially in the West as well, who are picking up now, and they're trying to provide solutions for this modern world. This has been a major contention, right? This has been a major contention. That's why I see good days coming forward, because something has, Allah will protect this ummah. We're definitely going down, and I think if you can get this kitab called Saviors of Islamic Spirit, but don't get the Indian translation. That's a 50-year-old, 1950s translation, very archaic. Try to get the one we published from White Thread Press. I'm not saying it just because we publish it for a reason. It gives you an understanding of the ups and downs of the ummah. You know, and today what we're fearing is not the worst of it. We've had worse times before, but Allah inshallah will take us out. But you and I, all of us, have to make an effort. You can't just blame the ulama, and we can't blame just leaders. We all have a responsibility, we all have to do our little bit, inshallah. Being a PhD research scholar, how do you balance personal and professional life including deen? What kind of research we need to do for humanity, which includes our ummah? Why Muslim world countries spending money on basic research? I can't answer all of these questions. I mean, what kind of research we need? I'd have to sit down with you, or you would have to come up with 3 or 4 ideas, take it to an alim and say, look, what do you think? Right? There are ideas that I've got written down, I have to look through my phone because I've been compiling ideas. But right now, I'm unable to give them to you or talk about them because of all of these questions. But it's not something, don't wait for an idea. Think of ideas. Think of 3 or 4 ideas. Take them to a good scholar and have a discussion. What do you think? Take them to other professions. What do you think? It has to be a concerted effort to find the right way. Inshallah, you will. And always ask Allah, Allah, accept me for the service of your deen. How do you balance your personal and professional life? Allahu Akbar. That's a difficult one. Especially those who are a bit geeky, who love their books. What we don't want to be is that when we're with our lab, we're like the best. When we go outside, we don't even know how to say salam to someone. That's a massive problem that we sometimes have, right? I've had to, you know, because if I sit with somebody who I have nothing in common with, I find it very difficult to speak to them. But if they're like talking about science or cars or not about football, or some books, or the Higgs boson, or the CERN reactor, Bismillah, let's talk about it. Though I don't know much about it, but let's talk about it. But that's Bill Gates. I read a report about him that one person went to meet him. So he was speaking to him, and Bill Gates was like just thinking about something else and was just like speaking to him on the side. Only when he brought up a particular subject, then he paid attention. Some people are just very geeky. But we have to make a concerted effort to not be like that. Because akhlaq, interpersonal relationships, your neighbors, your family members, they can't be disregarded. That's who we are. We're humans first. We're humans first. So we have to make an extra effort. And some people are so social that they can't sit down and concentrate on anything. They just want to talk all the time. These are different types of people in the world. We all have to make an effort to strike a balance. So how to do that will depend on your individual life. But you must give time to it. For example, there's one brother, he runs a very successful masjid in London. He's now older. 1/3 of his week he spends working as part-time, 1/3 with the family and 1/3 in the masjid. Divides the time, and he's doing very successfully. You have to consciously divide your time or realize where I'm going wrong. And inshallah that will help you. Why Muslim world countries not spending money on basic research? I think because some of them are just on survival mode. Some of them are just on survival mode, just trying to survive, or they've got their own petty little problems in other countries based on their own arrogance or whatever the case is. Every country's different. And again, that's not my responsibility. They're way above my pay grade. Right? Suppose I made my intention to serve Islam after my research. Is this thought and doing all my research deen? Reading every word, will it be deen? MashaAllah. I like that question. It possibly could be. Again, depending on if you've done it in an educated, qualified way with the right kind of mashwara and istikhara, you haven't got it wrong, like grossly wrong, then yes, everything is your deen. Everything will be deen. MashaAllah. Even our eating becomes deen like that. Okay. I am doing PhD in life sciences. Many times we get into debate regarding theory of evolution, which is quite contrary to our belief. So what should be the ideal argument to seal the debate, how to deal with such debate being a scholar of life sciences? I would, firstly, we're not Christians. Christians have a problem with evolution completely, like every part of evolution. We don't have a problem with every aspect of evolution. There are many aspects of evolution that are not problematic, right? The main problem in evolution, and there could be others, there are so many related sciences to evolution, right, that it's so difficult to encompass them all. One of the things we have a major problem with is the connection between Adam a.s. and some other species before. That's the biggest point of contention. We must be very clear about that. That whether you call him an anomaly in the circumstance or situation or whatever the case is, right? He was born from nothing. Allah created him from soil and clay. He did not mutate from something, unless you can say mutating from soil, right? I would suggest you go to ZamZamAcademy and you listen to those lectures by Usman Ali and Abdur-Rahman, Mufti Abdur-Rahman. They give you some start of what's going on. There are very good responses to it. Not the extreme responses like Harun Yahya's one, right? Those are kind of extreme. There are much more educated ways of looking at this. Right? So they're not all like just totally wipe out everything. No, there are certain things like that. So you need to probably get a better understanding of yourself before you can deal with others. And I'm not an expert on it, so I can't tell you like the one clinching argument. Sometimes what happens is that we know that doing certain things is not good and sinful, still knowingly or unknowingly involved into that sinful act, fall into the trap of shaitan. How can we get rid of this kind of acts? And after that, what do we need to do? This is a spiritual question, and the main thing is that number one, we need to develop a heart of spirituality to help us, to prevent us from falling into these things easily. When the heart is strong, we develop an immunity. You know, like when you've got a strong heart, strong body, then you're immune to catching a flu, right? Once I came back from Umrah or somewhere, or Hajj, and I had a jacket on, everybody else didn't. It's the same environment, same temperature, but I had a jacket. I was feeling cold, but they weren't. They got a problem? Do I have a problem? I had a problem. It's immunity. That's why they say you do a lot of dhikr, remembrance of Allah. You make your salat, you do dua, you read Quran. You will develop an immunity. Less likelihood. Now if you do fall sometimes, you make tawbah, you get up and you carry on. To say you will never commit a sin and never make a mistake, that's difficult. Very few people can do that. May Allah make us of those. But for the rest of us, we may fail. Let's get up and make tawbah and carry on. And make dua to Allah. But doing dhikr and asking Allah for protection is important. I'm trying to do multiple things in my life. I'm giving my best to please my family, trying my best to get my work done in office. I learn little bits of Quran. My problem is that I'm getting distracted in salat since I'm tied up with so many things. How can I get khushu in salat? There's a whole procedure. I would say on ZamZamAcademy there is how to gain attention or concentration in prayer. The whole process in there. It's a holistic way you have to approach it. And I would just say you listen to that because we've run out of time. We've gone over time. So I'm going to see if I can answer these questions, otherwise tell me when to stop. If I have a Muslim friend who is not following Islam properly, what kind of approach I have to take towards him, if I have any response in making him the right way. We all have responsibility, but that doesn't mean you force someone. Again, you try to keep a friendship, a relationship. You have to try to understand why they have this issue. Always try to go to the core. Why do they have this issue? And see if you can help trying to relieve that problem. For some people, it just takes time. Don't give up on people. Don't push people either. Just take it easy. Drop. Plant the seeds. And keep watering them every once in a while. Don't do too much watering. Otherwise it floods and then they don't grow. Okay? That's what it is. And ask to make a lot of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. Make a lot of dua, because at the end of it, it's Allah places hidayah. We try our best. Assalamu alaikum. How to overcome the moments when one encounters weakness and disappointments during research, when everything's not going well, how to deal with such situations. Take a break, have some coffee, relax, go do 2 rakats of salat. Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, when he couldn't understand the mas'ala, an issue, he would make 2 rakats, go in sajda, Allahumma fahimni, oh Allah, give me understanding, open this up to me, call on your God. Call on your Lord. Otherwise, just take a break as well. Sometimes it may just be that you have to sleep on it, right? Because sometimes we get writer's block. But call on to Allah to make it easy. Is it a good idea to get married and start family during PhD, or is it better to wait and not distract and marry after? It depends on your personality and your hormones. I was married before PhD, and I'm glad I was married, right? So it just depends. Unfortunately, some people can't. It depends how versatile, how committed, and how hard-working you are. For some people, they get married and it finishes, thus finish. Right? And some people, mashallah, they can carry on, but you need the right spouse. Because you may want, you get married and then your spouse starts crying all day. Right? Doesn't let you study, then you're in trouble. So make dua to Allah to give you the right spouse as well. Make istikhara, make istikhara. There are lots of naats where, although they don't use an instrument, but they alter the real voice. Is it allowed to listen? How do they know one is wrong? How to deal with non-mahram? Okay. If you're talking about beatboxing, right? I would say that even though you're not using instruments, if it sounds like that, because there's a lot of things that you can do with equalizers. If it sounds like music, it's going to have the same impact. I think it's problematic. I'm still doing research in that. But if it's similar to the duff, which is halal, right, in certain contexts, then that would be okay. So it depends. The devil is in the detail. It depends on how it's done and what's done. How to deal with non-mahrams in the work? I think I've answered that. Your supervisor is an atheist. How to protect yourself from thoughts because you spent a lot of conversation with him. The only way is an antidote, which is to develop your understanding of your Quran and Sunnah yourself. Once you've understood that, once you solidify yourself, and I would say that you need to avoid any unnecessary discussion. There's no point putting yourself up to danger. Only have necessary discussion. Right? We want to protect our iman at the end of the day. For us, that's the most valuable thing. Now, if you've got a proselytizing professor, that's a nice term, proselytizing professor, which means that he wants to convert you to atheism, then I feel sorry for you. Then may Allah be with you. But hopefully that's not the case. They're supposed to be neutral, right, and objective. But as Muslims, you probably have trouble, right? Even just getting through the ranks, because I know there's discrimination everywhere. I'm assuming there's discrimination here as well, right? May you be commended for where you have gotten to, and may Allah protect you on the path to further, and may Allah open up your path as well. The best tasbih to recite, 100 istighfar in the morning and evening, which basically gives you forgiveness. If you do it in the evening, everything you've done since the morning gets forgiven. You do it in the morning, everything gets forgiven since the night time. So now we're pure, clean, have the shower, pure spiritual shower. Now we do 100 salawat on Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam morning and evening to invoke blessings on us. And we read a bit of Quran. 100 La ilaha illallah. MashaAllah, that should be very good to start off with. And once you become regular with that, then inshallah the ulama can give you more that you can bring into that. Today there are a lot of alims with different ideologies. Each alim says they are correct, others not. Alims Jumu'ahs with Jamaat is right to follow. That's why I said in the beginning it's confusing. What I would suggest you do is to try to find those that you, other ulama also respect. And that you can trust their behavior, their knowledge, sincerity, and you keep asking Allah to help. That's all I can say. You do four things. Look at their behavior and knowledge. You look at what other ulama think of them. And you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And you just stick to it. From atheist point of view, everything is created, so who created God? We answered that. Why do Muslims blindly follow the Prophet ﷺ and have to do everything he said? I'm aware of his character traits and his reputation before revelation, but does that mean that he should be treated as larger-than-life personality? You see, to answer this question, I can't tell you who the Prophet ﷺ was. Once you believe that Allah is your creator, and he sent a series of prophets, Muhammad ﷺ was the last prophet, and everything about him is supposed to be perfect, because why would Allah send a prophet that's incomplete? So there's a certain trajectory of thought that needs to take place in understanding this. Then this question won't arise. So I can't really answer it quickly. It's about why he's there. Now I know from an academic, objective perspective, you know, there needs to be a preponderance, there needs to be a preponderator, right? That needs a whole topic of why that's the case. But I would say, if you fit into the worldview of what Allah wants from us through the Quran, if you read the Quran itself, it will tell you you must take what the Prophet said. وَمَا آتَاكُمْ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. And many other verses in the Quran show you the position of the Prophet as if you want to call it larger than life. Right? That's a reality of being a Muslim. There's a certain leap of faith you must take. Right? And be convinced by that fact. Otherwise, it's quite confusing to do anything else. I'm sorry if I can't answer all these questions because we have only 2 minutes left. Why has Allah permitted swine and eating pork for Christians, whilst after revelation of the Quran these things were prohibited? Allah did not permit it Allah did not permit it for them. In the Bible it's very clear that swine is not permitted. When I found that out myself, I was quite shocked, surprised at why do they still eat so much of it. So I've got a friend who's a Christian, but he studied Islam as well. So I contacted him and said, why doesn't any Christian follow this? He said, I think it was in the 3rd century, they made a decision that dietary laws will not be followed. As a Christian, you don't have to follow dietary laws and restrictions. Even if it says it in the Bible, dietary laws are not effective anymore. So that's, you can see where that's taking you. In fact, a Christian writer, journalist, just a few weeks ago, I read it in the, I'm not sure which paper he wrote for. He's actually a relative of one of the atheists, but he's Christian. He's saying how Christianity has become so diluted that soon people are going to be disenfranchised from materialism and secularism, and they're going to look for God again. Because this is a phase, right? It's only last 50 years. It's a phase. And he says Christianity will no longer have anything to offer because they diluted it, made it a feel-good religion. He says Islam has something. So he's telling the Christians, you better look at Islam, that they've maintained it. But he then says, Muslims, you better beware because you've also got people telling you to cancel this and cancel that, and make it the same as Christian religion of passivity. So he literally says that he's foretelling that secularism is going to fail soon. Materialism, and people are going to get tired of it. It's not giving you the heart. 25% of girls in England have a depression or something. 25%. I mentioned 50% there by mistake, so 25%. Right? That's a huge number, a quarter of the population of girls, teenagers, because the world is telling you to be some way, but you can't naturally be like that. There's a massive cognitive dissonance that's taking place in many people. They just don't know how to bring the two together. And I know we must do more to try to cater for that, to try to bring it together. There are lots of ideologies in Islam. Okay, we'll explain that. It looks like it's a popular question, or popular dilemma. Importance of intellectual humility, mashallah. Knowing, having a mentor as a shaykh to avoid dealings mainstream, very good. If you're very intellectual, very clever, very smart, the only thing we have to be careful of, if I call myself smart, that is, that we need to be careful that I don't start doing it for myself, thinking I'm, you know, like Steve Jobs, when he used to walk into a room, he probably knew he was the smartest guy there. How does that make you feel? Right? So, one way that I manage to calm myself down is to always be in touch with some of my shaykhs. Right? And do dhikr of Allah. Because when you have Allah in your heart, then you know Allah is the greatest. Keeps us in check. Very important. It will really benefit you. Otherwise you'll have empty intellectualism, which is problematic. How religion and spirituality can help the emptiness. Okay, I've just explained that. Jazakallah khairun. Let's make a short dua and to end this. Is Islam opposed to modernity? No, it depends on what you mean by modernity. Modernity is a very vague term. Are we still in even modernity? We're supposed to be post-modernity. Right? We're talking about a time of individualism. So who cares what modernity is anyway? It's finished. Modernity is gone. It's been discredited. So maybe the question is, what is something of postmodernism or postmodernity? It depends on what you mean by it. So all I would say is that the devil is in the detail. Anything that you're specifically concerned about, take that to a good scholar and see what they say about that. Not everything about modernity is going to be bad, but the post-modernity brings on capitalism. Capitalism is problematic. Right? Though we're all in it, it's problematic. But these are big topics. So inshallah, let me stop here.